A soldier can bleed inside her armor for 2 weeks straight, and no diagnostic will call it an emergency. Not because the system is broken, because it was built to let her keep fighting. For 14 days, Commander Vethrani Sovereignty carried damage that would have grounded any other officer and told no one. Her species doesn't feel pain the way you do. It just waits longer to be noticed. But it was noticed, just not by a doctor. But what the engineer saw that day was something her own body had stopped reporting. There is a kind of attention that most people never learn to pay. Not the attention of observation that one is taught in schools and training programs and professional development courses across every species the galaxy has produced. How to watch, how to record, how to extract the relevant data from a situation and file it in the correct category. The attention I am describing is different. It is the attention of someone who has looked at the same thing many times, across many contexts, and learned to notice not what is there but what is missing. Not what the data says but what it is carefully not saying. Not what the system reports but what it would report if it were allowed to report honestly. This kind of attention is rare because it requires something that most professional frameworks actively discourage. It requires caring about the answer before you know what it is. Dax Callum had been a field suit engineer at Sanctuary 7 for 6 years when Commander Vethrani Sovereignty walked into his station for the 4th time in 11 months. He had learned the kind of attention I am describing not from training but from the work itself, from 6 years of listening to suits tell him things their wearers had stopped noticing, or had decided to carry without assistance, or had classified as insufficient to report because reporting would require something that the operational situation did not currently permit. He had learned, in 6 years of this work, that the most important damage was rarely the kind that presented itself clearly. It was the kind that had been managed for 14 days. Without telling anyone, the Vethrani species had a relationship with pain that most coalition xenobiologists described, in the careful language of academic documentation, as high threshold with elevated management capacity. In practical terms, this meant that Vethrani soldiers could sustain injuries that would incapacitate most species and continue functioning at operational effectiveness. Their physiology was built for it. Dense bone structure, a circulatory system that ran at pressure levels that would rupture the vascular walls of most beings, and neural integration that distributed sensory input across a wider processing network so that no single pain signal dominated function the way it would in a less distributed system. The Vethrani were not, as a species, indifferent to pain. They simply processed it differently. The way a large vessel processes a wave differently from a small one, not by being unaffected, but by having enough mass and structure that what would capsize something smaller becomes something that can be navigated. What this meant, in engineering terms, was that Vethrani combat suits were designed around a soldier who would continue operating through damage that the suit's own diagnostic systems would flag as repair. The suits were built to accommodate this. They had feedback dampening layers. They had integration meshes that could route around damaged neural connection points rather than simply ceasing function. They were built to allow their wearers to keep going. What they were not built to do, what no system Dax had ever encountered was built to do, because the design philosophy had never considered it necessary, was to accurately report the cost of that continued operation. The suit could tell him what was damaged. It could not tell him how long the damage had been producing feedback. It could not tell him what 14 days felt like at the forearm integration layer. Translated into a nervous system that processed input differently but did not process it into nothing. It could not tell him that the commander who arrived at his station with her usual upright bearing and her usual contained silence had been operating for 2 weeks with a constant low-level signal running from her suit directly into her nervous system, and had classified this signal as insufficient to report because her unit needed her at full operational status and reporting. The damage would have reduced that status. The suit could not tell him any of that. What the suit could tell him when he ran the diagnostic and looked at the damage assessment on his display was that the stress fracture in the outer forearm plating had propagated through to the neural integration mesh beneath, and that the irritation patterns in the surrounding mesh were consistent with sustained unaddressed stimulation. Dax had learned, in 6 years, to read what that meant. He had also learned that the question of what had caused damage was not his to ask. "How long has this been running?" he said. Not an accusation, a calibration inquiry. The professional language of someone who needs information to do the work correctly. The pause before her answer was long enough to tell him something that the pause itself was not designed to convey. "Since the 3rd engagement of the KE corridor operation," she said. The K corridor operation had concluded 14 days ago. Dax set down his initial tool and picked up the precision instrument for the mesh work. "This is going to take about 90 minutes, he said. "You don't have to stand." She stood. The work was quiet. The way precise work tends to be. Not because the facility around them was quiet. It wasn't. Sanctuary 7's repair bay operated at the continuous functional hum of a place doing what it was designed for. Other technicians at other stations, equipment, the distant background sound of a working institution, the ordinary texture of a place that existed for the specific purpose of keeping soldiers functional in environments that would otherwise end them at Dax's station. The quiet was different. It was the quiet of two people occupying the same careful space with a shared understanding that what was happening required concentration, not silence as absence. Silence as a condition of the work. He had learned, across 4 visits in 11 months, that Commander Thessaly Vaughn's silence was not the silence of indifference. He had spent enough hours in proximity to it to understand that it was something more specific, the containment practiced by someone who had very little experience with the position of being attended to, who spent her professional existence attending to 800 soldiers, tracking their status, managing their welfare, making the 1,000 small decisions that kept a unit functional in conditions that consistently tried to make it otherwise, who had, in that position, developed a particular fluency with the experience of carrying things that required carrying and had not developed, because she had never needed it, the separate fluency of setting them down. 40 minutes into the repair, the diagnostic readings shifted, not because his work had reached the neural integration layer, it hadn't. He was still on the outer structural damage. The shift came from her posture, which had changed by approximately 3 degrees, a fractional release in the shoulder tension that the suit's integrated monitoring system registered as a change in her baseline muscular state. She was not making a decision to relax, the way a system stops managing an input when it registers that the input is being handled elsewhere. Dax kept working. He noted the reading and kept it where it belonged in his awareness of the system he was attending to, not in anything he said out loud. Some information belongs to the person generating it. 20 minutes later, he reached the mesh reset stage. This required his left hand flat against the suit surface at the integration point, not working, just maintaining contact pressure while the reset propagated. His right hand held the calibration tool at the outer layer. The suit's amber repair glow had been his companion through the repair, warm and steady, the feedback loop of a neural integrated system receiving careful attention. He had learned, in 6 years, that the glow was not decorative. It was the suit responding to the quality of contact, not with words, with information. The reset completed, he brought both hands back to the final plate closure. Then he saw the tear, a single track, moving slowly down her pale blue cheek. Not from grief, not from pain. The diagnostic would have shown pain amplification, and it was showing the opposite. The relaxation patterns had continued to deepen throughout the repair. Whatever had produced the tear was not distress. He recognized it as the physiological response that humans called being moved. The body's involuntary acknowledgement of something the mind has been keeping carefully managed. He continued closing the plating. He did not draw attention to it. He did not pretend not to have seen it. He simply continued doing the work, because the work was what had produced the moment, and interrupting the work to comment on the moment would have been a different kind of attention than the one she had come here for. When the repair was complete, he ran the final diagnostic. Clean across every metric, he stepped back with the quiet of someone who has finished something they are satisfied with. Full function restored, he said. The mesh will stabilize over the next 48 hours. If there's any residual feedback sensation, don't operate through it. She looked at him. The pale violet eyes carried the same composure they always had. The single track on her cheek had not been entirely absorbed by it, and she made no move to address it. You have repaired my suit 4 times, she said. You have never asked about the damage. The damage tells me what I need to know for the repair, he said. What caused it is your information. The pause that followed was different from the pauses that had preceded it in 11 months of visits. Not the silence of someone withholding, the silence of someone deciding to give. The K corridor, she said carefully. The forearm damage. I sustained it pulling a junior officer from a collapsing position. I did not report it for repair because reporting it would have required me to reduce operational status, and my unit needed me at full status. A beat, precise and deliberate. The decision was operationally correct. It was also 14 days of constant feedback. Her eyes stayed on him. I did not recognize until recently that there was a difference between correcting a problem and addressing it. Dax set his tools in their tray. He looked at her, the 800 soldiers, the 47 engagements, the suit that now read clean and functional across every metric. The repair window is always available, he said. Not only when the damage is unavoidable. The fractional change in her expression was small enough that anyone not paying the kind of attention he had learned to pay would have missed it entirely. I'll remember that, she said. She came back 11 days later. The suit read undamaged on the initial scan. Every system nominal, every reading within parameters. He ran the scan a second time. Still clean. He looked at her. She stood at his station with the same bearing, the same pale violet eyes, the same contained presence. The only thing the diagnostic could tell him was that everything was functioning correctly, and that she had come anyway. Nothing needs repair, he said. No, she said. He set down the scanner. He pulled the work stool from beside his station and placed it where she usually stood. 90 minutes, he said. Calibration, maintenance, preventive. The smallest warmth reached her eyes. The first time he had seen it entirely unguarded. She sat down. He worked not on damage that existed, but on the maintenance that extended function. The calibration that kept the integration layers from developing the small misalignments that accumulated over time in any system under sustained operational stress. The preventive work. The kind that most commanders never made time for because it was invisible. It prevented future damage without producing any visible current result. The kind of work whose value was entirely in the things that didn't happen afterward. He worked, and she sat, and the suit's amber glow was steady and warm, and the diagnostic showed no damage, and also showed the continued deepening of the relaxation pattern that had begun on the previous visit. 30 minutes in, she spoke. "I have commanded soldiers for 16 years, she said. The voice was the same measured register she always used. But something in it had changed, not the register, but the direction. Less like a report, more like a conversation. "I have spent 16 years assessing what my unit needs and ensuring they receive it. I have never been particularly skilled at applying the same assessment to myself." "That's a common configuration," he said, without looking up from the calibration. "In beings who are responsible for others. You have observed this before. In most species that come through this station." Yes, he adjusted his calibration point. "The ability to recognize need in others and the ability to recognize it in yourself use different skills. Most training develops one. The other one has to be learned separately." The pause that followed was thoughtful rather than withheld. "How does a person learn it?" she said. He was quiet for a moment, not avoiding the question, thinking about it honestly. "Usually," he said, "someone notices, and you let them." The amber glow of the suit was steady and warm in the repair bay light, and somewhere in the reading he was monitoring, the baseline continued to shift in the direction that the system registered as rest. Sanctuary 7 quietly added preventive calibration appointments to its official maintenance schedule the following month. The documentation listed them as long-term integration maintenance reduces cumulative suit wear. The filing was accurate. The mesh work Dax had been performing did reduce cumulative suit wear. The calibration appointments did extend the operational life of neural integration systems by a measurable margin. The documentation did not mention that Commander Thessaly Vaughn had begun arriving at the appointments before her scheduled time and leaving slightly after. That she had started, gradually and without announcement, providing one-sentence context for the damage she brought to repairs, not because he asked, but because she had started to understand that the context was part of the care, and that withholding it was a form of operating through the feedback without reporting. The documentation did not mention that the junior officer she had pulled from the collapsing position during the K corridor operation, a young Vethrani soldier named Rail, 18 months into her first deployment, had been quietly recommended by Commander Vaughn for a station assignment at Sanctuary 7 18 months after the incident. The recommendation had cited Rail's aptitude for systems integration and technical analysis. It had not cited the fact that Rail had come to her commander, 8 months into her recovery from the injuries sustained in that corridor, and said something that Vaughn had not forgotten. She had said, "Commander, I don't know how to stop carrying it. The weight of what you did for me, I don't know what to do with it." And Vaughn had looked at her, this young soldier with her serious eyes and her carefully maintained composure, and had said something that she herself had learned, recently and unexpectedly, from an engineer in a repair bay who had never asked what caused the damage. She had said, "You let someone notice, and then you let them." Rail had arrived at Sanctuary 7 4 months later. She had been, by every professional assessment, an excellent addition to the technical team. She had also, within her first 3 months, demonstrated the specific quality of attention that the best engineers developed, the ability to notice not what the system reported, but what it was carefully not reporting. She had learned it, she said when asked, from a commander who had spent 14 days operating through damage she hadn't reported, and who had learned, from someone who noticed without being asked, that there was a difference between correcting a problem and addressing it. The thing about that kind of attention, the attention of someone who notices before being told, who hears what the system is not saying, who keeps working without drawing attention to the moment because the work itself is what the moment needs, is that it travels. It moves through the people it touches, and it changes what they know how to do, and it appears, eventually, in the way they attend to others. In the specific gentleness of a commander who has learned the difference between operational correctness and actual care. In the quiet competence of a young engineer who notices what is missing rather than what is present. In repair bays across the coalition, and in command centers, and in the small spaces between people where the most significant decisions are made. The decision to let yourself be attended to let someone notice, to stop managing the input alone. Something was spreading, not through formal training, not through policy revision or institutional directive, through the specific, ordinary, extraordinary transmission of people who had been shown something and had carried it forward. Dax Callum remained at Sanctuary 7 for 4 more years, before transferring to the Coalition's primary suit engineering research division, where he spent the following decade developing new integration mesh standards that, among other improvements, made it significantly easier for the suit's diagnostic systems to report the duration of unaddressed damage, not just its presence. The standard was adopted across all Coalition combat suit manufacturing within 3 years of publication. The documentation listed the improvement as a technical advancement in suit monitoring capability. It did not mention that the idea had originated in the specific frustration of an engineer who had spent 6 years looking at mesh irritation patterns and understanding, from the patterns alone, how long a person had been carrying something without telling anyone, and who had learned that the most important information a system can provide is not what it's reporting, but what it's been quietly managing alone. And for the first time, the galaxy understood what it truly meant to be human, not the technical innovation, not the advancement in suit monitoring standards, not even the specific engineering insight that had improved coalition combat capability across 30 species and 1,000 active deployments, but the attention that had produced it. The particular, careful, unremarkable attention of someone who had looked at the same kind of damage enough times to understand that the damage was never only structural, who had learned that the most important question was not what the system reported but what it had been quietly not reporting, and for how long, and at what cost, who had understood, without being taught and without being told, that the difference between correcting a problem and addressing it was the difference between what a system needed to function and what the being inside the system needed to be whole, and who had, on a quiet afternoon in a repair bay doing ordinary work in an ordinary facility, looked at a diagnostic reading and a fractional change in posture and a single track on a pale blue cheek, and known without asking that what the person in front of him needed was not an explanation or a comment or a record of having noticed, just someone who kept working carefully for 90 minutes, until the system registered that the input was no longer being managed alone. If this story moved you, subscribe to HFY Legends, new human stories from the stars. Every week we will be here, paying attention. As always,